He hit her in front of a full diner. He hit a 72-year-old woman across the face, straightened his tie, and looked around the room like he had just done something righteous. And she did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She did not beg or tremble or look away. She looked at him with a kind of calm that people in that diner would describe for years afterward. Not the calm of a person who had been defeated, but the calm of a person who already knew what was coming and felt only pity for the man who didn't. That look is what this story is actually about. Not the slap, the look. Stay until the moment his world begins to come apart, because when you finally understand why she wasn't afraid, everything that came before it will make a different kind of sense. If you love your mother, if you believe that kindness is never wasted and that quiet people carry more power than the world gives them credit for, like this video, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me what your mother means to you. Now let's go back to that diner. Her name was Clara Monroe, 72 years old. She woke every morning at 6:30 in a modest apartment with lace curtains she had sewn herself 40 years ago. The walls held a lifetime of careful choices. Family, photographs arranged on the mantle, fresh flowers from the window garden, shelves of books that belonged to a woman who had spent her entire life believing in education as an act of love. The most prominent photographs were of her son, Marcus, at formal dinners, Marcus at charity galas, Marcus in conference rooms with serious men who held serious power. Something in business, she always told the neighbors when they asked. Important meetings, significant responsibilities, the kind of work that required private cars and quiet phone calls returned immediately. Every Tuesday at noon she met her friend Edna at a neighborhood diner called Rosewood, where they had shared the same corner booth for 15 years. The diner's owner, a woman named Carmen, always cleaned table 6 twice and put out fresh flowers, because Clara Monroe was the kind of woman who made a place feel like it mattered to be excellent. When Marcus called that morning, his voice carried the particular warmth he reserved only for her. "Sleep well, Ma? Always like a baby." She told him about lunch with Edna, and he paused the way he always did. That small hesitation she had never quite understood. He offered to arrange private dining. She refused the way she always did. "Good people matter more than fancy places," she told him. He laughed and said he loved her and ended the call. He always ended calls quickly. Successful men operated on tight schedules. Across the city in a tower with floor-to-ceiling windows and Italian marble floors, a man named Robert Dalton was starting his morning in a very different way. He was a senior partner at one of the city's most prominent law firms, a man who had built a career defending corporations against discrimination lawsuits, a man who measured power by how many people he could safely dismiss. He told his assistant that morning to cancel a client consultation because the woman's accent bothered him. His assistant noted that the woman spoke 5 languages and ran 3 successful companies. Dalton said he didn't care. Image mattered. Appropriate clientele mattered. The natural order of things mattered. He had spent years polishing a universe where the right kind of people were protected and everyone else stayed where they belonged. He had no idea he was about to walk into Rosewood Diner and encounter the one woman in the city whose quiet life had made that universe impossible to maintain. Dalton arrived at Rosewood in the middle of the lunch rush with the posture of a man at war with his own afternoon. His usual restaurant had been fully booked. He surveyed the diner with barely concealed contempt, cracked vinyl booths, laminated menus, the smell of honest work in the air. He threw himself into a seat near Clara's booth without waiting to be shown to a table, pulled out his phone, and began communicating his displeasure to the world through aggressive text messages. Clara and Edna sat in their corner booth, their conversation flowing easily. Edna was describing her grandson's college acceptance when Clara reached for the sugar dispenser. Her elbow, moving with the careful attention of a woman who had spent decades being mindful in shared spaces, barely grazed Dalton's briefcase on the adjacent table. The contact was almost nothing, enough to tip his oversized coffee cup. Brown. Liquid spread across his legal documents, seeping into contracts, soaking case files. Dalton exploded from his seat. Everything he had accumulated that morning, the parking ticket, the construction delays, the barista who hadn't performed properly, condensed into a single point of fury directed at the woman reaching for napkins beside him. Clara immediately began offering help, offering to pay for any damages, speaking in the measured tone of a woman who had resolved 1,000 small conflicts over 7 decades through patience and grace. He called her names that hung in the diner like smoke. He invoked her race twice, and her supposed station in life 3 times. He told her she and her kind needed to learn their place. Clara straightened in her chair and said quietly that there was no need for that kind of language. He grabbed her wrist. She looked at his hand, then at his face, and told him to let go. He didn't, and when she looked at him with those calm, unafraid eyes, the eyes that would be described for years afterward, something in him broke entirely. The slap echoed through the diner like a gunshot. Every phone in the room came up. Every camera recorded every word that had been said. Clara touched her cheek. She looked at him with the expression that is the entire heart of this story. Not fear, not even anger, pity. "You have no idea what you just did," she said quietly. Dalton straightened his tie. Nobody put in their place, he told himself. No idea. None at all. In the corner booth, a well-dressed man who had been reading a newspaper with too much attention had already dialed a number. He had picked up Clara's wedding ring, which had rolled across the floor, and was pocketing it carefully. Evidence, perhaps. Or something to return to the woman his employer loved more than life itself. If this story is doing something to you, subscribe right now and leave a comment. Because everything that happens next is the reason this story was worth telling. Marcus. Monroe sat at the head of a private dinner table with 8 people who did not exist in any public record. To the outside world, he was a successful businessman with mysterious responsibilities and a well-tailored suit. In the room he occupied that evening, he was something else entirely. The man whose word governed half the city's shadow economy, whose discipline had made him the most feared and respected figure in 3 states. His phone buzzed during a discussion about a construction contract. He saw his mother's name and stood immediately. Everything in the room stopped. Successful men in Marcus Monroe's circle understood one thing without being told. When he took a call from his mother, nothing else existed. He stepped into the adjoining office and heard her voice, measured and calm, describing the coffee, the documents, the escalating language, and finally the slap with the same steadiness she had described every difficulty of her life, as information to be processed, not as suffering to be performed. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees while he listened. He asked if she was hurt. "Just a bruised cheek," she said. He told her not to speak to reporters, not to sign anything. He told her he was handling this now. She said he didn't need to get involved. He said what he always said in the moments that mattered. "Someone put their hands on you. This is business. Now." He ended the call, stood motionless for 30 seconds in front of the office window, staring at the city below him. Then he went back into the dining room and looked at the 8 people watching him wait for his word. "A lawyer," he said quietly. "Name is Robert Dalton. I want everything. Background, finances, enemies, weaknesses. 2 hours." Everyone was already reaching for phones before he finished speaking. But Marcus Monroe had also learned something from his mother, the old version of him, the one who had clawed his way up through the streets to his current position, wanted immediate and brutal response. The version his mother had raised wanted justice that lasted, accountability that mattered, consequences that protected the next person. He told his people, "We do this right, through the system. We make sure the system works." What Dalton could not have known, what no one in that diner could have understood from looking at a 72-year-old woman in a modest dress eating lunch with her friend, was that Clara Monroe had spent 50 years investing in people. Not in the way that wealthy people invest, not in the way that accumulates leverage or builds obligation, in the way that believes in a person before they believe in themselves. The district attorney of the city had attended Clara's Sunday school classes for 5 years as a child. When her father lost his factory job and the family was considering leaving, Clara had quietly arranged tutoring, had written the recommendation letter that secured a full scholarship to law school. The police commissioner had been a rookie officer, struggling with invisible wounds from his military service when Clara organized community support that saved his career. A federal judge had received her first legal job through a referral Clara had arranged 20 years ago. One by one, Marcus Monroe contacted people who owed Clara Monroe not favors, not corruption, but something deeper, the debts of gratitude that exist when someone believed in you when the world had not yet decided to. He did not ask for special treatment. He asked each person to ensure that justice was served properly, thoroughly, and according to every standard Clara had spent her life teaching. By midnight, the assault case had been flagged for priority review. By morning, investigators were examining Dalton's complete career history. 3 previous incidents quietly settled. Employment discrimination lawsuits where victims had been silenced through legal intimidation. A pattern that a single assault charge had now pulled into the light. The law firm suspended him before noon. His clients had already begun requesting new representation. Federal investigators arrived that afternoon with questions about his litigation strategies in discrimination cases. Dalton had spent his career believing his connections made him untouchable. He had no vocabulary for what was happening to him, because what was happening was not power being used against power. It was gratitude, organized and patient, and finally given the right moment to express itself. The courtroom was full when Judge Patricia Monroe, no relation, though the name made several people pause, called the case of the people versus Robert Dalton. Clara sat in the front row in her Sunday best, her posture radiating the quiet dignity that had defined her for 7 decades. In the back corner, almost invisible among the packed gallery, Marcus Monroe watched with the patience of a man who had already won and was simply waiting for the formal announcement. The evidence was overwhelming. Body camera footage showing Dalton's false account to police, cell phone videos from multiple angles capturing every slur and every moment of physical violence. Most damaging, Dalton's own social media posts from that evening, gloating about putting people in their place, confident his connections would protect him. He had documented his own crime. When Clara testified, the courtroom fell silent, the way rooms go silent when something true is being spoken. She described offering to help, offering to pay for the documents, attempting to de-escalate at every point. She described being grabbed, being struck, and the specific way the experience had reminded her of an earlier time in history when such language was publicly acceptable. The judge asked why she hadn't simply left when the situation became hostile. Clara straightened in her chair. Because I had every right to be there. I have been a customer at that diner for 15 years. I have lived in this neighborhood for 45 years. I have contributed to this community as an educator, a volunteer, and a neighbor. I was not going to be driven away by someone's hatred. The room erupted. The judge allowed it for 3 seconds before restoring order. Dalton was found guilty on all charges, 18 months in federal custody. Mandatory community service at organizations serving the communities he had spent a career diminishing. His law license referred for immediate review by the state bar. As the bailiff approached with handcuffs, Dalton's eyes found Marcus Monroe across the courtroom. Marcus did not smile, did not acknowledge the look. He stood, walked to his mother, and placed his arm around her shoulders as they walked out together. "Thank you for handling this properly," she said to him. "You taught me well, Ma," he said. Justice matters more than revenge. Outside, the courthouse. Steps held press microphones, community leaders, and a young law student named Imani, who had come because Dorothy, Clara, had inspired her to believe that dignity was itself a form of resistance. Clara stopped to speak with her. "Told me about your family, dear." The real victory was not in the sentence. It was in the law schools that adopted the case as required reading, in the police departments that revised their bias crime protocols, in the state bar that implemented new character requirements. Clara Monroe had spent 50 years building something. One terrible afternoon had accidentally put it all on display. Marcus Monroe had kept his promise to his mother. Justice through the system with dignity, exactly the way she had taught him. She didn't cry when he hit her. She didn't shake. She looked at him with calm eyes and said 4 words. "You have no idea." And she was right. He had no idea that the woman he dismissed as nobody was everybody's somebody. He had no idea that 50 years of quietly believing in. People had built a network of loyalty that no amount of money or connection could match. He had no idea that the most dangerous man in the city was her son, and that her son had learned from her that true power does not need to be loud. She didn't need Marcus to protect her with violence. She had already protected herself with decades of dignity. He was simply the instrument through which her life's work finally received its response. If this story moved you, if you believe, that kindness is an investment that always returns. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment telling me about someone in your life who carried more power than the world gave them credit for. I want to know. See you in the next story.